Hey, so glad you guys are here. We're going to mix things up today. You're like, wait a minute, we normally don't do one song and then jump right in. Well, today we're doing one song and jumping right in. If you're new, man, we are thrilled to have you with us. My name is Petey. I'm new too, so it's all good right there with you. I'm honored to get to be the lead pastor here. Been here for a whopping 2 months and just learning this place, loving this place, learning Colorado Springs. I sat outside yesterday in the middle of January, end of January. I sat outside in shorts and a hoodie and a lawn chair in my driveway. It's like, it's 50 degrees and it's January. What planet are we on? This is crazy. Y'all have been living like this for a while, and the world does not know. Okay, so we're loving being here. And man, if you are new, I know how hard it is to come to church for the first time. And so I just want to acknowledge that for you, man. If you're here and you're brand new, I know it takes a ton of courage. Honestly, as someone who works in ministry, has been in ministry for over a decade, I still hate going to churches for the first time, okay, because I just know how hard it is. And it's just hard sometimes to, like, not know what to expect, not know the vibe of the people, not know kind of what's happening. And so I just know it takes a ton of courage for you to be here. We're grateful to have you. Hope that we keep seeing you, and hope you have a great experience with us. You do need to know, like, who we are. We don't have like a ton of things in common, all of us that call Red Rock home. Like, the one thing we have in common is that we are obsessed with Jesus. We're consumed with Jesus because he has changed our lives. There's so many of us in here who our lives were going one direction, and then all of a sudden, because of Jesus, everything has changed. That we were previously hopeless, and now we have hope. We previously had no purpose, and now Jesus has given us purpose. Like, just our whole lives have changed. And so that's why we sing, that's why we shout, that's why we clap, that's why we like go nuts over Jesus. We're just obsessed with him. And we wanted to create a place where you could come and discover who he really is and what he's really all about, and a safe place to do that. A place where it's kind of easy to understand what's going on, and no one's going to look at you funny, no one's going to give you judgmental looks if you're new to church. We want to create a safe place for you to come and discover Jesus and see why we're so obsessed with him. And we hope that happens for you today. Now, a story to kind of kick us off and get our minds and hearts going in the right direction there, all right? First off, question, do you have a friend? I should say the rest of the question first. Do you have a friend? That's the first question. Second question is, do you have a friend that's a good storyteller? All right, do you have a friend that's just got like great stories, all right? I love having a friend that has great stories. I both love it and hate it, because when you have a friend that has great stories, it makes you realize what a boring life you live, you know? You're like, Netflix every night's not doing it for me. I should probably get out and do some things. But when you have a friend that has great stories, it's great. And I had this friend back in Indiana, where we moved here from, who I worked with on staff for a few years, and his name was Dave. And Dave was a great storyteller. Dave had the best stories because Dave had a career in the NBA. So he was a professional basketball player. He did his thing in the NBA for a while and collected a ton of great stories. Now, Dave, his best story, and Dave always did this thing, like you could tell, like midweek you could walk out in the church lobby and you could see Dave out there, and there'd be a crowd of people around him, and Dave just telling one of his great stories. And the closer you get to that crowd, you realize that it was just like a bunch of out-of-shape pastors who wish they had athletic capacity, you know, just like in awe of what it would be like to be athletic. But Dave would tell the story, and it was my favorite story. He had a Michael Jordan story. All right, and if you have a Michael Jordan story, you win. You win at all things. Every dinner party you go to, you have the best story in the house, and it's not even close. Now, his MJ story was killer, and I got to share it with you, okay? So the way he told it is that MJ was at the height of his career. He's at the pinnacle. They're dominating. Michael Jordan and Scottie Pippen are just running people over. They're winning championships. Everything's going great. But there was a practice that they had. It was a practice before the Bulls went on an away trip. So they're going to go play some road games, but they're having a practice before they get on the bus and go. And it was a real light practice, real easy practice. No one's going super intense. They're doing a little scrimmaging, first string against second string, winner stays, third string comes in, plays the winner, that kind of deal. But there's one guy on the team who was new to the team. They just signed him, highly touted recruit. They were excited to have him. But this guy is like entering the Bulls dynasty. So he's trying to prove himself, right? So Jordan's out there, Jordan Pippen, first string. They're scrimmaging. They win the first game against the second string. And again, no one's going like intense. This is practice. This is scrimmage. Out comes the third string team with this new guy on the team. And he gets matched up against Michael Jordan. So he's going against Jordan in his first practice with the Bulls. He's matched up against the greatest, arguably the greatest of all time. And so the first game, they're going back and forth, and they're playing, and he's like, man, I can't believe I'm playing against MJ. He's kind of shocked, right? And the game gets to this point where it's tied 9-9. First one to 10 wins. Next point wins. And this new guy has the ball. And Jordan's guarding him. So he's like, this is my chance. I'm gonna show off. I'm going to go all in. So he tries to drive past Jordan. He can't drive past him. Tries to shake him with a little crossover. Can't shake him. And so then he acts like he's going in. Then he steps back, fadeaway jump shot over Michael Jordan, and it goes in. He hits the game winner against Michael Jordan. Now, that's not the shocking part of the story. The shocking part of the story is what happens next. Because that guy in front of the entire Bulls organization looks at Michael Jordan, and he points at him and says, "That's right. Sit down, old man." And everyone's just like, and surprisingly, MJ does exactly that. He obeys. He goes, and he sits down on the bench and quietly waits. And everyone's like, oh, what's going to happen next? Like, should we stop? Is he fired now? Like, what's happening? And so the second string team comes back out and plays the third string, and the third string wins again. So now MJ's going to come back on the court with the first string. He's going to go against the dude who just said, "That's right, sit down, old man." You know? And so Michael Jordan gets the ball up top. The game hasn't started yet, and he checks it up with the guy that just said that to him. And he grabs the ball, and the way Dave tells it's perfect. Legend has it that he looks around to everyone and says, "Hey, clear out. Clear out. It's my turn." And MJ proceeds to destroy this poor young man's soul. 10 straight points, uninterrupted, steal, block, point, dunk. I mean, just obliterates him. And then after he scores the 10th point, he looks up to the owner's box where the owners and the managers are hanging out. And he says, "If this dude's on the bus tonight, I'm not. Get rid of him." And he was fired on the spot, never played another minute in the NBA. My dude MJ destroyed a man's career in a practice. And I love that story so much. And the reason I tell it is that what we're going to talk about today is kind of an MJ moment, but for Jesus. Okay, Jesus has this moment in Luke chapter 20 that we're going to unpack today where he says, "Give me the ball, clear out, it's my turn." Okay, we've been going through Luke chapter 20 all month long, and Jesus has been getting hit with some really hard questions. If you missed these past 3 weeks, it's all good, we can catch you up, but really the gist of Luke 20 is that Jesus is getting hit with some really hard questions by these religious leaders. And they're these religious leaders that we don't think we have much in common with. But we see that the really hard questions that they're asking Jesus, these questions that are really intended to just trap him, really intended to just get him to say something stupid so that people will stop paying so much attention to him. But what we found out is that these religious leaders, the types of questions that they're asking, are actually very similar to the questions that you and I ask. They're actually very similar to the kinds of questions that we ask of God to kind of stiff-arm him and keep him at a distance. They're the questions we use to excuse ourselves from the conversation of faith. And now today, what we're going to see, Jesus has answered all the questions. He's navigated through it. I mean, Jesus has given these brilliant responses. And then Jesus has actually turned the tables on us these past 3 weeks and started asking us a better question. And these better questions have been changing our perspective, changing our thoughts about God, changing the way we approach him, and really changing our lives. But today, there is no question asked of Jesus. Today, Jesus is going to take the ball. He's going to check it up top. He's going to say, "Clear out. It's my turn. I'm going to ask the questions, and I'm going to go on the offensive." And I believe the question that he asks us today has the power to change your life. I believe any week we talk about Jesus, I believe it has the power to change your life. But today especially, I'm telling you, it is going to be a really, really special one. Can't wait. Y'all ready for it? If you're not ready for it, I'm ready for it. And so we're going there. All right, Luke chapter 20. We're going to start in verse 41. All right, it says this. It says, "Then Jesus presented them with a question. 'Why is it,' he asks, 'that the Messiah is said to be the son of David? For David himself wrote in the book of Psalms, "The Lord said to my Lord, sit in the place of honor at my right hand until I humble your enemies, making them a footstool under your feet." Since David called the Messiah Lord, how can the Messiah be his son?" Now, I know what just happened. I know what just happened. We just read a verse, and you guys were like, "We're ready for this. Let's do this. Let's see Jesus throw down. Take the ball, check it up." I was great. Then you read the verse, and you're like, huh? Because it's just so weird sounding, right? It's just so like, what is Jesus talking about here? I mean, and we just have to call it what it is. Sometimes understanding the Bible is hard for us because we're walking in this with like a 21st century, like Western American perspective, and we got to somehow transport ourselves back to first century Judaism to understand some of this stuff, and that's just hard. I mean, there are so many words in those verses that we just read that you're like, what does that even even mean? Like, that just sounds like spiritual mumbo jumbo, right? Like, this is not normal words to say in sentences. But that's where you just got to have some context. And again, just a little bit of context will help you understand this. We can't do with this what we do with most Bible verses. Like most Bible verses, and I'm guilty of it too, when you read, you're like, I don't understand it, so let's just breeze by it and act like we know what we're talking about and act like we understand it. And let's find one that's a little easier to understand. We will miss something so powerful and so life-changing if we do that. So a little context will help us understand. The Jewish people that Jesus was speaking to, their worldview, the way they saw life, the way they saw the future, the way they kind of approached life, was with two great expectations. They had two huge expectations of life. They didn't know if they would see it, but they believed that at some point two things would happen. They believed that eventually a man would come to lead them. Okay? This man that in the Old Testament is referred to as the Messiah, this Savior that would come and lead them back to a place of prominence. You see, when Jesus is talking here, the people of Israel have been completely conquered. They are under Roman rule. But they believed that there would come a man to lead them to freedom. And what they believed would be political freedom. They believed that the Messiah would come, and that the Messiah would come from the lineage of David, King David. So from his line, one of his grandkids or great-grandkids or great-great-great-great-great-great-grandkids down the line, one of them would be the man to lead them. And then they had this other expectation. Not only would there be a man to lead them and lead them to political freedom, but that God would ultimately save them. Right? So like this man would come and govern their physical lives and lead them back to a place of prominence as a nation, but that in the end, God would save them. Like God would be the one that when they die would take care of them. There'd be a man to lead them, but in the end, God would save them. A man to lead them and a God to save them. These were the two great expectations that the Jewish people had. Now, they believed that those would be two separate experiences. They were not prepared to find those two things under one roof. All right, and I'm not sure if you've ever had that experience where you find two very different things in one place. It's a little disorienting, right? Like first time I walked into, you ever seen these like KFC Taco Bell joints? Like that is just not right, all right? You got like tacos and fried chicken. I've never in my life wanted to combine tacos and I would honestly, I would love to be a part of the business meeting where they came up with that. Like, all right, guys, we're really struggling here. We got a bad taco joint. It's not great. We got a bad fried chicken joint. It's not great. What do? I've got an idea. Let's just put them together, right? I'm sure two bad things will make a good thing. It doesn't. We actually have a better example of this right here in Colorado Springs, all right? Like, as a new person to the area, I've just moved. I'm trying to learn the area. I'm asking for, like, all kinds of helpful advice from people. Like, hey, where should I go eat? Where should I go visit? Like, I'm trying to learn the area. And so I ask people, like, where should I get good donuts? And so I ask that question. People say, like, all right, there's this place you should go get good donuts. I'm like, all right, cool, I'll go there. Because, like, you know, I'm a dad. I'm take my dad. Like, kids get donuts. Like, donuts with dad's a thing. So I've got to find a good donut joint. And then I said, like, all right, so, like, where should I go to find, like, good Vietnamese food, like some good noodles? And they're like, you should go to this place. And it just so happens that those two places are under the same roof. Ladies and gentlemen, none other than Colorado Springs' finest, donuts and noodles. It's a thing. I am all in. Whereas I don't like KFC Taco Bell combo, I am all in on the donuts and noodle combo. All right? You could eat every meal of the day there. You could just sit there all day long. You start with breakfast, you progress to Vietnamese. It's fantastic. I'm all in. And if you've never been to Donuts and Noodles, you should go today because right now I am more of a local than you, okay? I know donuts and noodles, so you need to get on my level with that. No, but like two separate things, like these two things don't belong together. And this is the perspective that the Jewish people had. In their minds, there's no way that the Messiah, this man to lead them, could also be the God to save them. They expected two separate experiences. And Jesus comes along and says, how is it that the Messiah could be the son of David, when back in the Old Testament, David called the Messiah his Lord? How could the Messiah be both the son and the Lord? How could it be? Unless God, the God that would save them, would become a man, the man to lead them. See, and this is what Jesus was trying to lead them to. The two things you expect, a man to lead you and a God to save you, are found under the same roof. And this was so hard for them to understand. This is so hard because, you see, Jesus fit the bill to be the man to lead them. Jesus fit the bill. Jesus was exactly who the Messiah was predicted to be. Back in the Old Testament, they predicted that the Messiah would come from David, that he would come from Bethlehem, that he'd be from the tribe of Judah. All these predictions. Jesus fit them all. And so everyone's thinking, great, the Messiah is here. Politically lead us. Restore us to prominence. And it just threw him for a loop when Jesus was like, politics, I've got a spiritual kingdom that I'm the leader of. And you can come be a part of it. See, their expectations were off because in Jesus, what he's trying to lead them to is, I am both the man to lead you and the God to save you. That God has become a man. God has put on flesh and bone. And make no mistake about it, this is the core theological conviction of the Christian faith. If you want to know what the Christian faith is all about, it is not about being a good person. It is not about following a list of rules, the 10 Commandments. It's not even about church attendance or involvement. I know you're like, dang it, I thought that's why I was here today. It's about a wild obsession, a complete consummate, like you are just consumed with Jesus. That Jesus is both the man to lead us and the God to save us. That everything starts and stops and hinges on Jesus. This is the core conviction of the Christian faith. I love how Paul writes it. Back in the first century, the Apostle Paul wrote a letter to a church in a city called Colossae. And he writes this about Jesus. It's so fascinating. Just listen to how extreme this is. This is not like Jesus is a good man, Jesus is a good teacher. Just listen to how serious, how big this is. He says, Christ, Jesus, is the visible image of the invisible God. He existed before anything was created, and he is supreme over all creation. For through him, God created everything in the heavenly realms and on earth. He, Jesus, made the things we can see and the things we can't see, such as thrones, kingdoms, rulers, and authorities in the unseen world. Everything was created through Jesus and for Jesus. He existed before anything else, and he, Jesus, holds all creation together. God put on flesh and bone. God became a man. Jesus saying the two things you expected to find, a man to lead you and a God to save you, it's all here. You're finding it in me. You're finding it in Jesus, the person of Jesus. And from Jesus' perspective, he's like, man, I've done everything necessary to prove these two things to you. I think if Jesus were here in bodily form right now, I think he would say that. I think he would say, I've done plenty. I've done enough. Like, what more could you possibly need to believe these two things, that I'm both the man to lead you and the God to save you? He's done it all. You know, earlier I mentioned Jordan, and I said that he's the greatest of all time, and I corrected myself. I said arguably. Because that's an argument, right? Like, you ask somebody who's the greatest basketball player of all time, and they're going to say either Michael Jordan or LeBron James. And what I've found is that question is actually just like an age question. Like, if you say MJ, you're older than me. So, like, I'm LeBron's age. So I'm like the great dividing point. Most people my age are like, I'm not sure if it's Jordan or LeBron. You ask anyone older than me, they're going to say it's Jordan. You ask anybody younger than me, they're going to say it's LeBron. It's like it's a great age determining factor. But you look at both of those dudes, and you're like, honestly, at the end of the day, who knows? Because their stats, they're going to dominate the whole game. Like, you're going to look at it, and they have done everything, right? They've scored all the points. They've set all the records. They hold all the records. They have all they've done it all, right? No one's going to argue that those two, in the end, are going to be the two greatest to have played the game because they've done it all. And I think if Jesus were here, he would say, like, if you think they've done it all, I've done everything you need to believe that I'm the man to lead you and the God to save you. I think if Jesus were here, he would say, I created this place you're living in right now. I created the very world that you look around me, like this beautiful, amazing earth that we get to live on, that is the perfect specifications to support human life. If it were slightly off in any way, none of us exist. And not only is it the perfect specifications to support human life, it's beautiful. It's beautiful. I love how Paul would write it to a church in Rome back in the first century. He said that when you look around at creation, you see how incredible it is. You no longer have an excuse. You should know God. You should know that he loves you. You should know that he's for you. You should know that he's a good father. Because look at this beautiful place. I mean, come on. Like, if anyone should know it, it should be us in Colorado Springs. I've driven a lot of places. Ain't no driving to work going to beat the mountains. That's crazy. We had some friends in from out of town this weekend, and we took them to, like, you know, the touristy spots, like, because that's all I know. I'm new. Come on. So we took them to, like, Garden of the Gods. We went to, like, Green Mountain Falls. The place where, like the only place I've explored was, like, Gold Camp Road up there, like, bumpy. But you get up there and you're like, what world are we living in? This is crazy. This is like National Geographic stuff. This is not normal. It's beautiful. And Jesus would say, like, I created this world for you. And then he's not the kind of God that just creates a world and then spins it off into existence and walks away. It's like, man, I'll create the world, and then I'll step into the created world. I'll come and live among you. I'll put on flesh and bone, and I'll live the same life you've lived. I'll suffer the same temptations. I'll suffer the same heartache. I'll go through the same pain as you did so that I can relate to you. But guess what? I'm going to live the life, and I'm going to do it flawlessly. I'm going to show you how it's done. I'm going to show you how to love. I'm going to show you how to lead. I'm going to show you how to serve. I'm going to live the life. And then he takes it a step further. He says, not only will I live the life, I'll die the death. I mean, gosh, from Jesus' perspective, he's like, man, they've messed up so much. They've got so much regret. And they've made so many mistakes. There's no way that they're going to be able to fix this relationship with me on their own. I'm going to have to step in and sacrifice myself for them. I'm going to die for them. I'm going to stretch out my arms and give up everything for them so they can be forgiven. He creates the world. He steps into the created world. He lives the life. He dies the death. He just keeps going. He conquers the grave. He didn't stay dead. 3 days later, he rose from the dead. And I know some of you that are maybe more skeptical of faith are like, yeah. This is like the fairy tale stuff. This is the stuff they're like, yeah, he rose from the dead. No, he rose from the dead, and he gave us proof. He gave us historical documents that record eyewitnesses, people by name, who said, I saw a man dead, and 3 days later I saw him alive. People who had nothing to gain by testifying to the resurrection. In fact, everything to lose. Most of them would die because of their faith in Jesus. He creates the world. He steps into the created world. He lives the life. He dies the death. He conquers the grave. And as if that wasn't enough. I mean, at that point, you're like, you've done everything you need to do. I believe you. I trust you. He keeps going. Because then he starts pursuing you personally. He starts coming after you and me individually, working in our life, working in our circumstances, orchestrating the details of our life and being involved in ways that we can't, like, and some of us know it. Some of us know that God is working in our life. Even if we'd say, no, he's not, or we'd maybe like to ignore it with our friends, many of us know that there are things that have happened in our life that are unexplainable apart from the work of God. There are things that have bounced our way in life that you can't explain. There are people that were there for you at just the right time to encourage you, at just the right time to support you, at just the right time to give you an opportunity that your life would be totally different if it wasn't for that, and you can't explain it apart from God working in your life. I mean, heck, the fact that some of y'all are here right now is like proof that God is working in your life. Because you're like, this is the last place I would ever envision coming. I never envisioned being in a church, and I'm not really sure how I got here apart from the work of God in your life. It's because God's pursuing you. He's hell-bent on reaching you. He'll do whatever it takes. See, I think Jesus would say, I've done it all. I've given you every reason to believe that I'm both the man to lead you and the God to save you. And some of us in the room right now, we know it. We know it. Others of us don't. And hear me out. Like Todd said at the beginning, like, man, if you're here and you're checking things out, this is a safe place. There is no judgment, no pressure. This is a great place to come and discover and get your questions answered. And if that's where you are, that's fantastic. We're so thrilled to have you. But some of us know, deep down, you cut us open, we know that Jesus is the man to lead us and the God to save us. We know it. We just don't want to face it. We just don't want to go there. You know, there's some things in life that you know, but you don't want to face it. You know When you've seen that Amazon Prime van pull up to your house a few too many times, you know that credit card bill is going to be big. Like, oh, good Lord, I have Amazon to the snot out of this thing this month. You know it. You just don't want to face it, right? Like, I knew the other day that made my wife mad. We're doing this. I knew I just didn't want to face it. We're doing this thing where, like, we're trying to reduce screen time for our kids because apparently screen time turns kids into demon worshiping things. It's true. But my wife was gone for a bit. I was hanging out with them. We for sure played video games, maybe a little too long. And she came over, she's like, have you guys been on screen since I left? And I was like, I am busted. What are we doing for dinner tonight? You want to get some ice cream? You want to like I knew it. I knew the look on her face. There was no getting out of it. I could not deflect enough to escape this consequence. Like, you knew it. You know it. You'll just do whatever you can to avoid it. And some of us know deep down that Jesus is real, that he's there, that God's pursuing you. We know it deep down. We just do not want to face it. And to those of us that know, but we don't want to face it, Jesus has one last thing to say to us. He ends Luke chapter 20 with a word to those of us that know the truth, but we just don't want to act on it. We know reality. We just want to act like it's not there. He says this, with the crowds listening, he turned to his disciples and he said, beware of these teachers of religious law, for they like to parade around in flowing robes, and they love to receive respectful greetings as they walk in the marketplace, and how they love the seats of honor in the synagogues and the head table at banquets. Yet they shamelessly cheat widows out of their property and then pretend to be pious by making long prayers in public. Because of this, they will be severely punished. I know you read that and you're like, that is not me. That's not me. I mean, I'm not a religious leader. I mean, I don't have any flowing robes that I'm wearing out in public. Like, I'm not like praying a long time in front of people. I'm not cheating any widows out of their property. Like, that's not me. But remember, what we found all throughout Luke 20 is that the heart of the religious leader is in all of us. Our actions may look different, but the heart behind them is very, very similar. You see, the religious leaders knew the truth. They just wouldn't act on it. They knew that they weren't as good as they were pretending to be. They knew that this show that they were putting on was a fraud. They knew the darkness of their own hearts. They were just unwilling to act on it. And they're so concerned with outward appearances. That's all they just wanted to protect their image, protect their outward appearances. And I'm telling you, the heart of that religious leader is inside every single one of us. That we know what we're supposed to do. We just don't want to face it. We know the truth. We know that Jesus is who he said he was. We know that God's pursuing us. We know that that's the life we ought to be living. But we just don't want to do it. And honestly, the reason that most of us don't want to do it is because of outward appearances. The reason most of us struggle to give our lives to Jesus and to start following him is because we are deathly terrified of what our friends are going to think, what our family's going to think, what our coworkers are going to think. We can't take it. But we know. And that's why today is such a great opportunity for you. Because we're going to open up the opportunity for you to make a big decision, a big life-changing decision today. To give your life to Jesus, to start following him, and to declare that private decision between you and God publicly by getting baptized. And it's the perfect first step for you in your decision to start following Jesus, because it counteracts the heart of the religious leader in all of us. See, like, to do this, you have to humble yourself. You have to say, like, I don't care what anyone thinks. I don't care anymore. Jesus, you've done everything I could possibly need and more. You've proven to me that you are the man to lead me and the God to save me, and I don't care what people think. I'm going to start following you. And I'm not quite sure what it looks like, and I'm still a mess, and I've still got addictions, I've still got issues, I don't know the Bible, but I know that you're real, Jesus. And you humble yourself, and you let someone else baptize you, lowering you in the water in front of everybody, and lowering yourself into the water, and that symbolizes dying to your old way of life and raising up to a new life, a different direction that you're heading. And again, it's perfect to counteract what's going on in your heart. It's the perfect first step for you, and That's the opportunity that you have today. To stop messing around, stop pretending, and just say yes to Jesus. And we've got everything you could possibly need. Like legit, I know you didn't come plan on getting in a tub of water and getting dunked in front of a bunch of people, but we got you covered. We got shirts, we got shorts, we got hairbrushes, we got undies. I'm talking new undies, not like used and cleaned and dried. They're like brand new in the pack. You can rip them open. They are yours, okay? You can keep them. We got undies. We got everything you could possibly need. The only thing you have to do is to make the decision to overcome your fear. Because let me tell you, no one's going to look at you with a stank eye if you do it. When you do it, if you do it, this whole church is going to erupt in celebration and encouragement. We had a guy last service who decided to do it, and it was just such a cool thing to see how God worked in that way, and the way that the church just responded and encouraged, and the way he felt afterwards, and the way he had decided to start following Jesus in that way. It was just so cool. But no one's going to give you the stink eye on it. The only thing that's left is the fear. The fear. And I can tell you, and many people in this room, I mean, I'm looking around, and I know some of the stories in here. I'm starting to know some more of them. There are people in this room that would testify and tell you that the life you were created to live is on the other side of that fear. That if you would push through it and do the thing that you know you're supposed to do, act on the truth, the life you were created to live is on the other side of that fear. And so what we're going to do is, I'm going to stand you up here in just a second. I'm going to pray for us, and I'm going to walk off the stage. I'm going to walk right out those doors, the back of the room. And if you're ready to make that decision, to start following Jesus and to get baptized, meet me back there. We'll get you ready, and we'll do this today. And I go into moments like these with zero pressure and zero anxiety about it, because if one person decides, great. That's between you and God. We're here to just give you the opportunity to celebrate with you, but if 100 people do, great. If nobody does, okay. Our responsibility is just to tell you the truth, to tell you what you know deep down, and to give you the opportunity and tell you we're going to love you and encourage you all along the way. And so let's see what Jesus does. Would you stand with me? Let me pray for us, and then we'll sing, we'll worship, and we'll see what happens. Jesus, we love you. We are so grateful for the way that you've loved us, the way that you have gone the distance to prove to us that you are the man to lead us and the God to save us. Both expectations in one. And our lives are forever changed because of it. When you stepped into this world and as God, you put on flesh and bone and you lived the life and you died the death and you conquered the grave, it has changed everything for us. But God, I know right now you are pursuing us, each of us. And I know there's some people in the room right now that are scared. God, I know because I've been there, and I know because many people in the room have been there, that right now there's some people in the room that are feeling this inner turmoil, knowing that you're there, knowing that you're real, but scared. I pray right now you would remove that fear and give them the courage to follow you fearlessly, to trust that this is the life that they were meant to live. And God, as we sing to you, as we celebrate you, God, I pray that you would remind us of all that you've done for us. For those of us in the room that have already given our lives to you and we're already following you, remind us of the love that you've shown us. Remind us of all you've done. You are the man to lead us, and you are the God to save us. We ask you to meet us in the room right now. It's in Jesus' name we pray. Amen.